All right. Thank you everyone for joining today. My name's Ann Greeny. I am the CMO here at Sierra Ventures. Really excited about this topic. It's something that comes up a lot in the early stage. And it's all about building a really effective and optimized website. It's something that often gets neglected. You focus so much on the product in the early days, and then the website becomes an afterthought. But that website is your first point of contact with your prospects, with your customers, with future investors and partners. So really excited to also have my friends at Smartbug Media here. They are the experts in this space. They have built hundreds of thousands of websites, I'm sure they're going to attest to. And I've actually been a customer of theirs several times. And every time I continue to refer them, and they work with some of our portfolio as well. So super excited to have Jen Spencer, who is the CEO of Smartbug Media, and Liz Dodd, who works on some of their strategic efforts. So with that, I'm going to pass this over to Jen and Liz, and thank you guys again for joining. I'm really excited for this session.
Of course. I think, Lizzie, you're going to share your screen.
I'll get it up.
Awesome. Thanks, Anne. Everyone, I'm so excited to be able to talk with you today about how you can be better leveraging your website. When I first met Anne, I was a founding team member of an early stage startup. I joked that my computer didn't have a letter T on it. It did not. That is a true story. And we were pre-product and pre-revenue. So we were people who, I think we were kind of some smart people, right? Who had a good idea. And that idea turned into Allbound, which is a partner relationship management software platform that is now doing extraordinarily well. But that's around the time when Anne and I first met. So she knows that I'm all about all things scrappy and making yourself have the right foundational setup that you need on your website to help you scale and help you stand out with the audience that you're looking to target. So before we get in, and I'll just briefly introduce a little bit more about myself and Smartbug, and then I want Liz to introduce herself as well. But as Anne said, I'm the CEO of Smartbug. I was a past two-time client of Smartbug's, joined in 2017 as our VP of Sales and Marketing, became Chief Revenue Officer, then President, and was part of a succession plan to take over as Smartbug's CEO. So today we are about 300 people. We are fully remote. We always have been. We've never had an office at all. I think the first time I hired Smartbug, there were probably 10 people on payroll. And when I joined the team, I was number 28. So it's been a really exciting journey, a wild ride, and looking forward to sharing a lot of what we've learned in the process of growing and helping our clients grow with you all today. Our clients are mainly using HubSpot as their marketing automation platform. We support clients on various different CMS platforms, though we have some favorites. And a lot of our clients are looking to us to help them scale their marketing, sales, and customer success channels through using best-of-breed technology platforms like HubSpot. So glad to be here, and can't wait for you to meet Liz.
Yeah, hi, thanks, Jen. It's so nice to meet you all and get to spend a few minutes with you today. I've been in digital project management for over a decade now. My background started in manufacturing, actually, and then I moved into the agency space and have been an alum of a few organizations, but I've been happily at Smartbug for almost 5 years now. So I've gotten to see a very wide variety of clients over that time and build products that are really successful in getting results for our clients. So it's been really fun. I've now moved into kind of an internal role to help grow our agency and help with strategic programs. So it's always fun to get to talk about this part of our business and how we get success for our clients. So I'm excited to share with you today. With that, we can get into it. Jen will get the first slide up.
Perfect. All right. So wanted to cover a little bit about like some of the mistakes we tend to see with early stage websites, founder websites. And I just want to say, like, coming from being a member of a founding team, I get it, right? This is your baby. You are putting your whole life into, in many cases, into your product, into the solution. And the biggest mistake I see made is that the website doesn't accurately, properly reflect the value of what it is that your solution provides. What does it mean to people, to your buyers? Does it communicate appropriately to the customer? So some of the things that I've seen on websites are kind of talking in an echo chamber. So the language that's on the website, the way you describe your solution makes a lot of sense to you and maybe your co-founder, maybe another team member. But if someone else who's not in your inner circle hears it or reads it, they're a little bit confused about what exactly it is that you do. And the type of pushback I think that I hear is, well, sounds too elementary. This sounds too basic, right? I want it to sound have a certain level of sophistication, but you have to put yourself in your buyer's shoes. You have to put yourself in their place and think about all of the chaos that they have in their lives, in their roles, and all the problems that they have. And it needs to be very clear how you're going to help them solve that problem. So that's probably the first and foremost. And so something I would recommend really is using a third-party team or having a set of people that you trust that you can share some of that messaging with, to make sure someone goes to your website and they see like, okay, I actually know what problem this company helps me solve. The other challenges that we tend to see are just not having the right kinds of conversion opportunities on the website. So everybody wants your website to be the place where people are going to click that button and request a demo, request a consultation, talk to sales. Believe me, I want all those too, right? Those are our North Star SQLs that we want to be generating, and I get it, but you have to provide a variety of ways for people to engage with you and have the marketing automation process in the background set up so that someone who's not quite ready to raise their hand and get a demo or get a quote is still able to be nurtured, and you can be following up with them later on when they are actually ready for that sales conversation. Liz,
Yeah.
I know would love for you to jump in and talk a little bit more about UX and some of the more technical kind of pieces that you see.
Yeah, so we're going to get into this a lot today, and we have some very specific examples of what this can look like. But first of all, what is UX? That's, a buzz acronym. It's user experience. So that means every interaction that your customer is having with you truly in the digital space. But specifically today, we're talking about that on your website. And one of the key areas of that is your navigation. How is your customer going to find what they want to find on your website? Sometimes we make that way too complicated. We bury content way too deep, and we tell customers things that they don't need to know right up front, right? We just want to get them to the right content quickly and make it a great experience. So we're going to talk about a few high-level ways to think through that when you're first setting up your V1 of your website. Obviously, throughout the years and the ages of building your product, that can change and get better, and you can see what your users want to experience on your website. But there's some very basic things that we need to focus on in the beginning. And also just not having a mobile optimized website. I think that should probably be something that we're all focusing on first nowadays, but it's really easy to get caught up in the shiny of a desktop website design. And so we find a lot of customers spend their time really focusing on the desktop, and we really need to focus on the mobile. Some of our customers see 75% or more of their traffic coming from mobile users. So if we don't have a fast and easy to use mobile website, we are not serving those customers. And then to Jen's point, we can lose them because they're not going to convert. So those two things are really common mistakes that we see from a technical and design perspective. And we're going to get into that here in a minute. But first, I want to talk about the groundwork. So these 5 areas are kind of, we're going to show some details of these on the next slides. But these are the 5 things that we really like to start with. And we do this with all of our clients here. Obviously, depending on your engagement with us and how far along you are into your messaging and branding, we may get to site structure more quickly, right? But the very 2 foundational things are messaging and branding. So messaging is what we're trying to be to the world, what service we're offering, what product we're offering, and then branding is how we look and how we sound. So those things are really important to get in hand before we build a website, because we find that often sometimes we're trying to put the cart before the horse, and we can build the wrong thing if we don't have these 2 things nailed down first. So this is not wasted work, and it's important to take the time to do it well. Then we get into the brass tacks. So site structure, what pages are we building? What does that look like on your homepage? What things do we need to have on our homepage? And then we get into key features. Maybe for your organization, something like a calculator is important, or something specific. So we get into those added key features. And then also selecting a CMS. And that seems like a very unimportant decision sometimes, but you'll be surprised how married you get to your CMS over time. And so it's very important to take into consideration the type of business that you have. So we'll get into that a bit too. But Jen, for this first slide, can you talk with us about our positioning statement and how we arrived here in this exercise?
Yeah, happy to. So, so full disclosure, right? So Smartbug, we really grew up as an inbound marketing agency. You think about HubSpot, if you're familiar with HubSpot, they started out really as a marketing platform, marketing automation, and since have expanded to being a customer platform where you've got sales tools inside of HubSpot, you've got customer success tools inside of HubSpot, you've got commerce tools. And so we needed to, as we were growing, we were changing the way that we were providing services based off of the market that we serve. We recognized we kind of had to take a step back and go, wait a minute, like, what is our new way we want to position ourselves? How do we want people to be thinking about us? How do we want to describe ourselves? And this was the most critical part of repositioning us before we relaunched our website with like a little bit of a brand refresh. So the first thing that you do in your positioning statement is you have to state very clearly, who are you? It's how do you want the broader audience, your audience, to see you by category and by relationship? So we've named ourselves as Smartbug Media is the digital agency of choice. The next part is for whom. So who are the audiences that you specifically are going to be helping in the kind of work that you do? And for us, it's for organizations looking to create resilient growth across their entire customer lifecycle, because we wanted to make it clear that we're here to support each stage of that customer journey alongside HubSpot as their #1 partner. After we get through who we are and for whom, then we move into what do we actually do. And that's where your job is to highlight your areas of your skills or your industry expertise. So what do we do? Well, from marketing to sales, revenue operations to customer success, and e-commerce to integration, those are all the things we do. Then we switch over to how we do it. And so that's how you describe the offering that you're providing, and allow there to be ongoing evolution of your brand. So we're saying we do this by combining sound strategies and technology with top talent, because that will always be the case. We wanted to make sure that what we had in our positioning statement was able to be kind of evergreen, right? Like, yes, you're going to make updates, maybe like every year or 2 or so, right? But this isn't something, you're not updating your positioning statement on a monthly or quarterly basis. So it needs to be able to kind of hold up with you. And then why does it matter? Why should someone care about the work that you do or how you're able to help them? So you need to showcase the big picture benefits of collaborating with your brand that are instantly understood and valued by someone who is consuming this information for the very first time. This is the first time they're ever meeting you. So for us, why it matters is because we know our clients want to de-risk the future and they want to set the course for continued success. So hopefully this is a good framework that you can use to create your own positioning statement and use this as a model.
Yeah, and then we have a genericized example of a messaging matrix. So this is not our messaging matrix, but do you want to talk about this too, Jen?
Sure, absolutely. So in terms of getting to that positioning statement, there's some homework you have to do. And so I'm sure as founders, many of you, you've done a SWOT analysis, right? You've identified like what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, where do you have opportunities, what are potential threats that are there. But the other things that matter are a bit more internal. What is actually driving your decision making as a business? Where where does like what role does risk play, or does having a certain reputation play, or having certain kinds of stability? What kind of access or interaction do people want to have? Do you want people to have with you, with your brand? And then what is your like an example, like what is your overall performance? Like how quickly are you able to move, affect change? So these are some of the things that we've identified, like trust, access, speed. These are things that matter, right? Like might matter to our customers. You can identify, you know why you exist, or you should know, right? Why do you exist? Why did your business need to be created? There are some probably like 2 to 4 reasons why. And you take that and then you can expand off of it to make sure that you've got language that's going to engage your audience and reinforce that key benefit, to tie it back to ultimately the value that you provide. That will help bring your product from being like a luxury item or a nice to have to a need to have, because you're very clearly showing what value you can provide to that end user.
Yeah, so then we get into some of the fun stuff, right? I know that sometimes the messaging and positioning feels like it takes a lot of conversations and efforts. And we always see this magic moment once we start to get to visuals with our client where they're like, okay, we know who we are. Now let's get going. And so I think this is a really fun conversation to have of what's just some basic branding we can get into. Sometimes you're going to see a brand guide for a company that's like 50 pages long, and maybe your brand warrants that. But I think these things are a great starting place for all of us as we're just trying to get a basic website up. You can focus on logo, colors, and typefaces. Like this is the bread and butter of branding, and kind of the lowest amount that we can have to really have success in building a website. So I'm just going to go through a few things on branding that I think are really helpful to have. First of all, you can see our logo in the top left here. We've established just kind of some clear space rules in the ways in which our logo should be used. So you can see these are going to make a lot more sense probably to a designer, but obviously we just don't like our logo too crowded, right? So we've chosen to have a pretty good amount of clear space around our logo, and you'll see that throughout our website and branding. This is how we like to use our mark, and we don't use it in color. We use it in black and white almost everywhere, and so that's another choice that we've made. But so ours looks pretty simple, right? Then we get into primary colors. So you're going to see all of these throughout our logos and branding on our website. We also have a secondary palette that we've introduced now that has this really fun red and gold that you'll see throughout our site as well. But for the basics of a website, you really just need this primary palette, right? And based on accessibility and things, if you're working with a designer, and something we test for here at Smartbug is accessibility and color contrast. So I really do recommend having a part of your palette some high contrast colors, so that you can make sure if you're going to put your logo on a background, that you're going to have that sufficient contrast, right? It's much easier to read black and white than yellow on red, right? So we need to be thinking through those things and what options we have. Then we got into typography. So for us, that's Railway. We also have a set of fonts for our website. So Railway is often used on our print materials. And then we have kind of a second set of web fonts that we use on the website. But starting here in just a basics of how you want this to look. I have a little bit of a background in design, and so it's always fun for me to look through this, because your typography can really say a lot about who you are as a company. If you're using a serif font, that can be a little bit more traditional. If you're using a sans serif like us, it can focus on a little bit more of a modern vibe and a clean digital vibe. So that's something to think through as you're choosing. Also keep it simple. I know it's really fun to choose some cool scripty fonts, but that can be really complicated once you get into web sizing. So that's really important too, that if you're going to choose something that's really flowery, I guess, that you're willing to use it very sparingly. So for keywords, key things that you're trying to highlight, but you're not trying to write a whole paragraph of copy in a script font on your website. So these are just some things to think through. And like we do, they can be complementary. So you can have a set of fonts that look really good in print and that your designers can really have finesse there. But when we use fonts on a website, they're going to have to scale to mobile and desktop sizes. So it's really important for us to have some options there. So yeah, this is kind of the basics for us. And I just wanted to share that to kind of show you what we mean by branding. At a minimum, you need to have a logo. So even if you don't have these colors and typefaces right now, and you're using a template for your website, which there are some really good ones that we'll get into in a little bit, we need a logo to make sure we're headed in the right direction. So then we get into a sitemap. This very likely is a more complicated sitemap example than you will have for your V1 website, but I'm just kind of showing you how this can look. So at the top here, and I know it's really tiny, we have a home page. And then from that homepage, we're linking out to landing pages for things like services, contact us, those types of things. So this is kind of how our site structure can look. And even though these pages all have their distinct purposes, throughout these pages, we need to be thinking about what's going to be on them and also opportunities to convert. So we don't want your contact us page to be the only place that a customer can convert, right? Because if that's the only place, then they have to be interested enough to go to that contact us page. And that's a lot harder than making the opportunity to get in touch with you available throughout your site. So this is helpful though to think through, how do I synthesize my products and how do I in services and make sure that these are cohesive in a way that I can present them, that I don't have 200 pages on the V1 of my website. Because sometimes when we do this exercise with clients, they realize they don't have enough content to make a meaningful whole page, or it's just messy, right? So this is a very good visual for us to get into. And I mean, I've done this live in workshops with customers where we're just using sticky notes, right? Like we're just getting it out there. So make it fun. You don't have to use a software like this to create a sitemap. You can do this on a napkin if you need to, but it's a good exercise to go through.
Hey Liz, on that note, really fast, and maybe Anne, you might want to chime in too. I think I want to give people permission to have small websites. Like, I feel like I need to say that, like, I'm saying to you all as founders, like, you don't have to have a massive, I know, like Liz said, you don't need that. You really, I'm telling you, you do not need it. In fact, our clients that have these mega websites, they're often really bloated and they're underperforming. So you are better served with a smaller, high-performing website than worrying about having everything that whoever's been out there in the market for however many years, who you're looking to disrupt, whatever they have. So be comfortable, be more comfortable with starting small and having, and when you're doing a UX strategy, what we'll do also is we'll sort of create dotted lines of like, okay, in the future, there will be these sections. And so we plan for it at the onset, but you do not have to have it to launch. So I'm just saying that very clearly because I've been in your shoes. I know what you're feeling, and you do not have to have a 200-page website. You don't even have a 20-page website.
Jen, I completely agree. And this is why I love this exercise and it often gets overlooked. You know, go straight into design, straight into building or using someone else's template. The reason this exercise is so helpful is because you start to see like, what is the layout and what do we truly need and what don't we need? And I think as we go through some additional pages, even as you just look at the homepage, so often I see basically the same content over and over again, just written slightly different. And, you know, you're only going to have about 30 seconds of a prospect's time as when they hit this page. So you got to make it crystal clear when they're reading something, it's crystal clear you know, the message that you're trying to get across. So sometimes less is more. And scripting out what you'll look like in the future is great, but less is more in the now can really, really helpful for driving that conversion.
Yeah. And the concept Jid was just talking about is called an MVP, or a minimum viable product. And that just means our V1, right? That's the first thing. That's a term that we probably use in other things other than the website. But we've launched very successful campaigns for customers with 1 to 5 website pages. And so just to give you some brass tacks for that, that's how little, like sometimes you just need a homepage up for proof of concept, right? And so this is very important to think about. I need something. Maybe you have a conference coming up. Maybe you have sales conversations coming up, and you just need something to show, hey, we're real and we've got this, right? So I think that that's really important to keep in mind too. You can always add things later, and you can always optimize. So, but what do we build a website on? We build them on a CMS, hopefully. Back in the old days, we'd custom code absolutely everything, and you had to go to a developer for any tiny little change, right? And now we have these wonderful content management systems where we can manage our content ourselves, or with your small marketing team, with your big marketing team. And what's great about these CMSs is they've gotten really great as far as user-friendly. I mean, many of them kind of work like typing in a Google Doc. So we're going to show you some examples of that here in a minute. But the considerations I like to think through, we actually support quite a variety of CMS here at Smartbug. And so when we're working with a client who hasn't actually selected a CMS yet, these are kind of the conversations we have. How user-friendly does it need to be? What does your day-to-day for your marketing team look like? What is your budget, which is really important too, because some of these can cost a significant amount of money, if not just for the tool, for the upkeep, right? Because if you have to hire a developer to do every little thing, that's going to cost you more money over time. Does it have optimization tools? And how important is that to you, to have suggestions throughout the CMS, or having to do that work yourself? If you have a really robust marketing team, they may be able to do a lot of that work for you. But for a lot of us who are just starting out, having those tools and recommendations built into the CMS can be a great opportunity. And then security. We have compliance requirements depending on the type of products and services that you're offering. So that's a really important consideration too. Many don't have those requirements, but some do. And so if that's your business, we need to know that up front. And then also accessibility. This is both an important topic to just serve users well, as it is to avoid litigation right now. And so it's really important for us to consider accessibility as well. And that's features like alt text for images, color contrast checkers, things like that kind of help us make sure that our website is viewable and usable by as many users as possible. So what CMSs do we love, right? So this is an example from our website of kind of some of our partners here. And we do have a section for web CMS, and I'll actually add Magento to this. But the examples that we're going to show you today are all from HubSpot. I've never used HubSpot before coming to Smartbug 5 years ago. And it has been an incredibly lovely and wonderful experience to get on a CMS that I feel that I can do a lot. Once your templates and things are set up well by your dev team or the agency that you're working with, or even just the templates that you purchase from HubSpot, you have so much flexibility. And I don't feel like I'm waiting on a million people all the time to update content when I need to do that. And so it's really wonderful. You can also see HubSpot throughout a lot of these dots, right? So it's helpful because it also integrates with our sales CRM and we're using a lot of those different hubs. So if that's important to you for your website to talk to your CRM, it's a great option, right? But also WordPress, Craft CMS, Shopify, if you're going to have some products, these can all be good options and ones that we recommend often. So yeah, and then I'm going to talk through the homepage. This is the bare minimum, right? We've got to have a homepage. And so we wanted to dig in a little bit to the key elements of this. And you can see this graphic we have over on the right. it kind of goes through the primary, secondary, and just additional content. And we love to use this exercise with our clients to kind of, I'm going to show you an example of a wireframe next, so you can see how this might look a little bit practically. But really the key is we have to start with what we have to have on the website. So what are you trying to sell? We start with the logo though. We start with the logo, we start with navigation, and then we get into what we call the hero, or the above the fold is the old terminology that you may have heard floating around. Think of folding a newspaper in half. What are you going to see above that fold? We call that the hero section. So this is the kind of the primary content area where we want to think about, what does my user need to find in 10 seconds or less? Because sometimes that's all the time that we have before abandon, right? So we really need to focus on that navigation, headline, and a primary CTA. CTAs are a very important part of this process. That's what I talked about, call to action, and that's an opportunity for your client to get in touch with you anywhere on your website. So we don't want those to just live on the contact us page. We want those to live throughout the site. Then we get into secondary content. That could be things like stats, benefits, testimonials, anything like that that just supports who you are and that you're an expert in your space. And then additional content. We could get into blog posts, company updates, sign up for a newsletter, those types of things. But throughout all of this, the really key is just to keep it simple. If you just had information about your services, a really good call to action and headline, that would be enough. And we can always add more of the secondary content and additional content as we use modules to do that. So we'll get into that in a moment. I have this example of a wireframe that we often show here. Wireframes are basically just you getting to see how your content might play out on a real page, because similar to the sitemap, sometimes we get into this exercise and we realize we just have way too much going on for a single page and we need to trim it down. So I always recommend kind of wireframing out your modules, even if that's with a pencil and paper. We like to do it this way to just kind of get a picture for what that's all going to look like. But this is a good example of kind of how all of those elements may come together. Then modules. So we were talking with Anne and she was really just stoked on her HubSpot modules right now and how easy it is to duplicate things and edit them. So I snagged this example from HubSpot. It just shows how easy it is now to drag and drop. But what I really love about this example too is how the branding is consistent as they drop in a new module. It adds your typeface, it adds you know this color background and things like that. That was stuff that we used to have to custom code everywhere, right? And now you decide you want to drag in a CTA button right there, you can do it and it has your branding all attached to it. So we really love HubSpot for that reason, but there's other platforms that are module based as well. We're just partial because we love HubSpot, but and this is what we use for our website. And our website is sprawling. We have a couple thousand pages. So what I love about a module-based website is it allows you to scale really, really well. It serves you with those few pages when you're just looking for consistency. And it also serves you when you have a huge content engine, because it allows you to rinse and repeat and have a variety of types of templates that you can use to get your content done.
Liz, just wanted to add one thing here. So I'm also, a HubSpot super fan, have been for years, have worked with Webflow and WordPress and the others. And that's, there's pros and cons there for everything. But what's really important is, even if you're building with one of these modular, very easy to use platforms, is to get the foundation right. And so back to Liz and Jen's point, you can build a simple website to start, but work with someone to get the foundation right. Because if it is not built correctly, and I've done this, I hired a team that was very low cost to do a couple pages and ended up having to spend more time because they just didn't build it correctly the power of HubSpot and all of these other platforms is if it's built correctly, the foundation's right, it is so easy to make changes, to iterate, to add. And that's really what you want to empower your marketing team to be able to do, because nothing is more challenging than having a marketing team that has to constantly go back and forth for simple changes to a developer. So yeah, again, just adding to what Liz and Jen have said, and HubSpot's definitely one to check out.
I'm gonna triple down on this, you guys. So this is why, because just because it's HubSpot doesn't mean that that'll be built this way. So you could go to another developer solutions provider, someone you find on Upwork, and it is possible for them to just go in and hard code a whole website in HubSpot. So you can do that. So we offer a developer can do whatever they want. So I have been in with clients looking at their websites, massive websites, and I go in, I'm like, oh, let's move these things around, and I can't do it. It's the way it was built. So when I see that, like to Anne's point, it is faster and cheaper for a developer to just hard code the site. And that means they could sell it to you as an initial project at a much cheaper rate. But to Anne's point, you'll be paying for it much more in the long run. And so make sure that it is harder. It takes a lot more time and effort for a developer to build it correctly on a CMS like HubSpot. So just please be aware that I see large companies that are dealing with this because it's something that happened that they got stuck with from years ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and honestly, we spend a lot of time cleaning that up and rebuilding pages and things like that a lot. And it's why our developers have been, trained and focused on building a module library for you. I know I see that in my day-to-day. I create tons of content for the Smartbug Media website, and it's very rare now that I actually have to go to my developer for just like something I totally don't have at this point, right? And that is a really cool place to be, where we have all kinds of different content ideas that come up. So to have that library to support me in my work is so key. So we always want that and hope that for everyone. And that's how we structure our engagements to make sure folks have what they need. Yeah, so talking about evaluating additive modules, I'm going to let Jen keep talking about this, but we have a few ideas for you for the additive stuff. Oh,
Yes, I forgot to mute myself. So your homepage, that needs to be like the shining star. Like if I'm thinking about budget, that's where the vast majority of my budget's going to go, because that's where the majority of your traffic's going to go. And then from there, you're going to want to look at what are the other types of modules and pages that you're going to need. So think about it, think about those Legos, like what are the different bricks that you're going to want to have for the future. And that's where we can also help. But you also can look at other people's websites and you can get a sense of, okay, I want to be able to have something that does this or that. So some of the things that are most common that we see are any kind of statistics or customer testimonial modules that you might want to add in to different pages, being able to speak to your solutions by vertical, be able to segment your audiences so that if you're selling to like the healthcare space or the legal space or the IT space, that someone's easily able to figure out how you help them, how you serve them when they're navigating your website. And then you also have some place where you can be sharing ongoing educational content, thinking about like blogs and videos and ebooks and all of those great resources you're going to create that are going to help drive SEO traffic to your site. So on that note about content, developing content, producing content, it's just like it's just like saving money, right? If you wait until you're ready for retirement to start saving, you won't have any money in your retirement, right? You got to start earlier. So investing in good evergreen content like blogs and resources that are high quality will pay off for you long term. So you don't have to create a ton. They don't have to be very, very long. You don't have to have an extraordinary volume where you're blogging every single day, right? But do something pretty simple and do it consistently. So just start off with like, I'm going to write one thing a month. I'm going to interview a customer a month, and I'm going to take this. And one of the things coming from like a scrappy startup and even nonprofit background, I would always look at how can I 10x everything? How do I do one thing once and get the most out of it? So if I go to a trade show, can I be having my camera and also interviewing people to capture content that I can then use on my website, in a blog, in some kind of a wrap up that I can then promote on social media. And then based off of the type of eyeballs and attention I get to that content, that gives me some data that I can use for mapping out the rest of my editorial plan. So you don't have to do it all, but you got to do something.
Yeah, and then we get the opportunity from that information that Jen is talking about to optimize for conversion. So we do, as Jen mentioned, want to make sure our funnel is tight. It's not leaking. We are making sure that we are capturing that information. So you can see some examples over on the right of CTAs actually throughout our website to make sure that we're just getting that critical data throughout our website. So we have a very simple form linked here at the top left. This is kind of the basics, right? Like you just need first, last name, email to get somebody into your CRM and be able to contact them and then nurture that lead. Sometimes we make forms way too weighty, and the mental effort that somebody thinks it's going to take to fill out a form to contact us is just too big, honestly. So keep it simple and make sure that you're just getting your, your virtual Rolodex built there, right? We need to get contacts. And that's going to look different for every company, depending on what you define as a lead, right? So that can shift, right? But the basics are getting contact information. And sometimes you do need key information like company size or things like that to really determine how good a lead actually is. So feel free to add whatever for you is your key information, but we find that sometimes just keeping it simple is best in those form best practices. Then we get into pop-ups. So that can be another way we can have a CTA on a pop-up. We like to use these sparingly though. Sometimes they can be too disruptive. So keep that in mind. This is kind of, as you're getting moving, you may have something specific like an event that you're trying to get somebody to sign up for, a demo, things like that. So try to use this sparingly so you're not just overwhelming the customer as they come to your website. And then CTAs. So we've talked about this throughout the site. This can be as simple as a little button. They can also be something that is more full form, like downloading a resource or anything like that. So we have a lot of options for CTAs. And then also chatbots. Those can be another opportunity. We're seeing those throughout a lot of websites these days. I know I saw them the other day when I was trying to buy furniture. So they really can be, useful, right? When you're trying to figure out something, we have an opportunity for both live chat, like real support, or automated chatbots, and those can help us too. And then A/B testing. I could probably spend hours talking to you about A/B testing, so I'm just going to give you the wave tops. But once we get this content engine going, once we have our website out there, once we have, a content plan for blogs and resources, we can start testing and figure out what content is performing. So if you've chosen a great CMS, you're going to get those tools. And really with any CMS, you can use things like Google Search Console or Google Analytics to see some high level data. But what's great is if you choose a CMS that has a lot of that feature set built in, we can see it on a really granular level. I can see on our website who's clicking what buttons when I have what text on them. And that helps me make decisions going forward of what content's performing and what people are liking and being best served by. So it's a really great opportunity to think through all of these things as we get our content engine running. Yeah, so I'll let Jen and Ann run through these key takeaways, but that's a high level overview of our kind of step-by-step get a website live process.
Yeah, thanks, Liz. I think as a kind of as she said, kind of those key takeaways, it's please make sure it's like you want to make sure you're really clear on like you understand your company, you've made decisions about what your brand is going to be like and what drives you, what your mission is. And in turn, you also know your customer. You deeply understand who it is that you serve, so that way we can, or anyone who's working with you on your website can help you build a website that makes it really easy for those people to find what they need to provide value to them, to be able to make a good match so that you can bring them on board as a customer. As we also shared, don't feel like you have to have it all overdone. Don't feel like you have to have whatever the incumbent enterprise company has. They're probably not as digitally healthy as you think they might be. So keep it simple, get a site live, and then just use the data, use all of those insights that Liz is talking about. What are your most highly visited pages? What parts of your pages are highly viewed? What are people actually clicking on? What are they converting on? Where are customers actually coming from when they come to your website? And you use that information to continue to make updates to your site as you've got more data on engagement and overall performance.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jen and Liz. This has been fantastic. I think the investment in the website is something that is often overlooked, and it is so valuable, especially before you start building that real demand gen engine. So thank you both. And we'll have something up on the blog so you can rewatch the video and find some more content about building a great website. Have a wonderful day, everyone.